Another step forward today to help save the USS the Sullivans. $500,000 in state funding approved to make repairs to the Navy destroyer and to preserve the artifacts that are on board. This after the ship took on water back in April. Crews pumped out more than 3 million gallons of water from the ship before it was stabilized. It took 3 weeks to drain the floating naval museum. Today, Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes announced this latest funding effort, money that will help with what officials call an expensive endeavor.
While the mission has been accomplished to stop the ship from sinking, to stop the ship from leaning, we still have to pay the bill. And the bill is very, very significant for what was done to save USS the Sullivans.
Crews continue to work on regular maintenance to the hull. In fact, they're going to be in the water for the next few months. And on board, staff are still restoring items that were damaged, going through them one at a time. The Naval Park is also working with the city of Buffalo to try to hire a naval architect to figure out the next steps. Meanwhile, you've asked questions about what happened with all the money that was donated over the years, well before the recent crisis. Our Dave McKinley looked through those numbers.
We're a nonprofit. We operate, very judiciously.
And when it comes to giving your money, Charity Navigator gives the museum an 88 rating, which is kind of like a 4.5 on a 5-star rating on Yelp. According to the latest tax return we could find for it, in 2019, the museum took in roughly $1,268,000 in revenues, including grants, admissions, and special events and programs. At the same time, though, it listed expenses of $1,231,000. That's only about $37,000 less than it took in. What's your biggest expense down here when it comes to this place?
Maintenance, without a doubt. When you talk about maintenance in terms of painting, we're not talking about a couple of gallons here and there. We're talking about hundreds of gallons to paint the ship.
And leaks are nothing new. With the Sullivans in particular, in recent years, it averaged up to a dozen per year that needed to be tended to prior to the large ones, which sent the ship listing this spring when we spoke with Paul Marzello, the museum's director and CEO. But there's another expense involved in keeping this attraction and all others at the Naval and Military Park afloat. What about salaries? Is that a considerable cost?
Salaries is probably right up there with maintenance.
In 2019, the museum spent more than $756,000 in salaries, including just over $100,000 in compensation to Marzello. What's the size of the staff here?
So we have 7 full-time people, a very small office staff. There's me, and there's an office administrator. I've got a director of education. I've got a director of collections, which is our curator, 1 caretaker for each vessel, and then they have either 2 or in some cases just 1 assistant to help them.
And an event planner. According to the tax form, the museum employed 50 people in 2019, most of them part-timers, and many involved in one of its most successful endeavors, the overnight encampments on the nearby Little Rock.
250 kids sleep over there on that ship every weekend, so we need staff to supervise that, to clean, to prepare, and to empty the ship.
And Dave joins me now live. So Dave, there were a lot of people who donated to the museum when the ship started sinking. And besides the government, those private donations really add up and make a difference, you would imagine.
Yeah, Michael, over $1 million. And that was under a campaign launched last year before the ship started sinking this spring. And that money, you remember, was just about to be put to use to make repairs before the ship sprung that nearly disastrous leak in April. Now, since then, millions more have been pledged to raise in order to maintain this waterfront landmark for generations to come.
Yeah, good to go through those numbers. People have asked those questions, and according to the organization you mentioned, an 88 out of 100 is pretty good. So
yeah, that is pretty good. So at least you know that if you do donate money there, it appears that it is going to be put to good use and not wasted.
Exactly. Dave, thank you very much.